afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is the Breakfast Bankroll for Monday, January 31st, 2022, the last official day of January. As we get one step closer to tomorrow, February 1st, the Olympics. Yes, it's an Olympic year, the Winter Olympics, and hopefully as they progress, we progress with some inside info, maybe a few little pizza and beer swings as we digress into the Olympics. Big day today. A lot to talk about as the Super Bowl is set. Two games that were, well, the first game, a tale of two halves, and it was kind of comical. As I will talk with our co-host, Mr. Scott Webb. The first game goes to overtime, and then I said initially, here we go again. And I looked, I had a few people that snuck over to the house. They were able to escape the 2 feet of snow. And I says, this isn't the same as the Buffalo game. I said, A, Mahomes won't go down and get a touchdown. And B, I says, the way they're playing, I'm calling a pick. And sure enough, it was a pick. And a handful of plays later, Money McPherson for the win. The second game, I had a lot of 49er futures in August, September. We had a lot of clients had some even in November and got a better price. Pregame, I like the opportunity. I like the spot. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. The one thing that stuck out to me the most was the real opening line was the Rams minus 4.5. They opened it at 3.5. It went to 3. I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that the Niners were going to beat them 3 times in a row and 7 in a row. They had opportunities. They were up 10. They just couldn't generate any more offense. And then obviously the pick that was just a fungal bat to the second baseman or shortstop, and he dropped it, which was a big game changer. When it came down to it, the defensive front put a lot of pressure on Jimmy G, and I called him back foot Jimmy G early in the first half. Just complacency, all through the playoffs in the Dallas game and the Packer game, he had some of those balls that should have been pick sixes that weren't. They were just dropped or knocked down. And at the end, the pick that sealed the fate. So we have back-to-back years home teams at the Super Bowl. So that'll be interesting. But without further ado, let me bring in my co-host, the one and only Mr. Scott E. Webb. Good morning, Scotty.
Good morning, Jeff. And what is it? It's Monday after division game, so we got a Super Bowl now. And I suppose I'm going to be a minority here, but I suppose there are a lot of people out there pretty excited. I'm not one of those guys. I tend to like the best games, the biggest games, to have the best teams, and the best teams aren't playing this year for the Super Bowl. So I don't like that very well. But that being said, I'm not in control of that shit. So I just got to bet the way I need to bet and see if I can make some money on this damn game.
When things are going too well, we in life, not even talking a football game, we in life tend to screw it up. I'm the number one fan. I was, my two biggest fears in life was always success and failure. And the fact is, when life was going too good, I always said to myself, I didn't deserve it. I would self-sabotage. I'm like, wow, this life thing's real easy. And you go back to the Kansas City Chiefs against the Bills a week ago, and it was just a war. And the last 2 minutes, and then the overtime, and then take the first half with Kansas City, just waltzing down the field, 21-3. You know something? If there was 7, 8, 9 seconds, hey, you take the snap, you do a fade to one of the corners. They knock the ball down. It gets, you get the touchdown, or you just kick the field goal. With 5 seconds and no timeouts, you just got way too cute. And Andy Reid kind of said that he let Mahomes make that call over his better judgment. I mean, 5 seconds left. You take the 3, you're up 24-3, you get the ball to start the second half, and then you move on. And the fact of the matter is that the Bengals held, and Mahomes was shook the whole second half. And you brought it up on your timeline. Go back to the first time that these guys met. Cincinnati made the adjustments in the second half, shut Mahomes down, and they go on to win. And they did the same thing again yesterday. Thoughts on the stupidity? I know I'm not trying to be Monday morning quarterback here. Okay. I was yelling and screaming at the TV. Just take the 3 and just move on. Just move on. Take the 3. 24-3 at halftime is a pretty big butt whooping. And you get the ball. Enough's enough.
Well, 24-3 makes it that the other team needs 4 scores to beat you. And you don't get any scores. And if you've already got 24 points, why would you think you're never going to score again? So that's just common. Well, I shouldn't say common sense because they didn't use it. So yeah, that was a big play. Looking at I've got these websites I can go to and break these things down. And the number one play that was the biggest play in that game was the Mahomes interception where the defensive lineman tipped the pass and caught it. That's the number one biggest play of the game. And, I just don't like the idea that the best two teams were the Chiefs and the Bills, right? I mean, they're the best two teams. And those two teams just, they beat each other up. And then the Chiefs came out and just were all over the Bengals. And I expected that. I mean, I said that yesterday or all week. And then I'm like, they're gonna definitely get to the points that I think they're gonna need to get to. I thought they were gonna get almost 40 points in that game. And shit, they should have had 24 points in the first half. So it didn't work out that way. And then they really didn't score at all in the second half much. So it's I don't know. I guess the best way for me to say it's disappointing. But at the same time, it's life. That's the way life goes. The Bengals won the game, and somehow they pulled it out. So this Cincinnati Bengals team, according to Pro Football Outsiders, they are the third worst NFL championship game team ever. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the line shouldn't be 4. Tells me the line shouldn't be 4. Should be more like 7. So I haven't gone into that game. I was so frustrated with the first game that I couldn't even enjoy the damn second game. I thought the 49ers played the way the 49ers had to play, and they just played well. And at the end of the game, they couldn't keep up, and that's what I was afraid of with the 49ers. But they covered the spread, which I kind of figured they would, and that's I go 1-1 yesterday, but I just didn't like the idea that now we have to deal with the Bengals in the Super Bowl. And I like the story, I like the storyline, but I don't like this team at all. And what's interesting is if you actually look at the numbers for the game, the Bengals, EPA wise and all that stuff, they're better than the Chiefs yesterday. And I sit here and I think to myself, how in the hell is that even possible if we're watching the first half? Well, it was because they dominated the second. Mahomes ended up minus 0.6 EPA per play. and Joe Burrow was 0.22 positive. So you can't have a quarterback that doesn't become and at the end of the first half, I'm sure I didn't look at the number then, but I'm sure at the end of the first half, Mahomes was well ahead of where Burrow was, and then all of a sudden, he just shit the bed. So I get it. It is what it is, and we move on to the next week's game. Well, I guess it's 2 weeks from now, but we move on to those scenarios. But at the same time that we move on, it's really going to be a stretch for a guy like me to figure out how Cincinnati's going to stay with the Rams. It really is.
Well, again, I am such a fan of the big numbers. I was reaching out to some colleagues during halftime, and actually, let's go back. The game was over. Kansas City, Cincinnati's over. I was like, all right, guys, let's play the game. I was like, what's the spreads? San Fran, Cincinnati, Rams, Cincinnati. And I had San Fran minus 2.5, 51. And I had the Rams minus 3.5, 51. And Superbook, I swear to God, put out a number and then retracted, or it changed, like literally. In other words, that first hit, and it was a big hit from their sharps, was all on the Rams. So, technically 3 to 3.5. And right now it's
4 everywhere.
It's 4 across the Vegas Strip. And the 50 or 50.5s and the 51s are flat 49s with a 50 right now at the win. So again, take that opening number. Let's just use 3.5. And then let's use the 51 or 50.5. They're giving you that 27-23 feeling right off the rip, which was the same feeling when you were trying to gauge the Kansas City Cincinnati game, with that 50-51 number-ish somewhere in there, because that was the opening number, Scott. 51 and a hook was the opening number in that Kansas City Cincinnati game. And it got pushed all the way to 54 and hook. There was even some 55s. Okay. So I don't care where the public pushes this. The public's all in right now, supposedly, on the Rams and the under. So that tells us right away, okay, one of those numbers, whether it's the 4 or now the 49, is going to get blown to smithereens. And listen, Joe, it's a great story. It's a great, great story. He's going to be around for a long time. The Bengals are going to be around for a long time until these kids now get through their rookie contracts. And Joe wants $50 million a year. Jamar Chase wants $40 million a year, and they're not going to be able to do that. I've brought this scenario up, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm almost 1,000,000% sure Dan Marino got to the Super Bowl his second year. It was the Dolphins versus the 49ers. And I was biting. I bit the sizzle on that one. I took Dandy Don, whatever you want to call him, Marino, and Super Duper and Clayton. And I took the sizzle, not the steak, and the Niners won the Super Bowl. On paper, 2 games ago, Burrow got sacked 9 times. They didn't sack him yesterday. But the fact is now you got Donald, you got Miller. Listen, I'm not rooting against the story. I know the better team is the Rams, but I'm not going to get caught up in this thing pushing 4.5, 5, and then, Joe and company, getting a late score, or Stafford with that, late pick or something. I know what to do here. We got 2 weeks. I got a Rams plus 215 to win the Super Bowl. I'm content. I'm not going to hedge it right now. We had our 49er futures go up in flames. We had our Chiefs plus 4 at 4-1 go up in flames. I'm holding one future left. I'm content 2 weeks from now just to let it ride at that point.
Well, I guess my opinion is going to be is if you like the Rams, you better bet them now. Because I'm going to be surprised if it doesn't pass 4 and get into the 4.5, 5 range. Only because of what I'm saying. I mean, the storyline of the game may keep it where it's at now because of Joe Burrow and all the other stuff that goes on with that. But think of this. Jamar Chase is going to get taken out of the game. I mean, Ramsey's going to play him, and then they're not going to throw him the ball. And they're not going to be able to run. Nobody can run on the Rams. So, and then the pass protection is just god awful. And this is a pass rush that's actually pretty damn good. So, the defense, I got numbers for you. The defense ranks 31st. This is the Bengals. The defense ranks 31st on first downs, 28th in the red zone, and 25th on deep passes to the left and deep passes to the right. This does not a good matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, it's just not. So I get it. They got Burrow can do a lot of stuff, and I get it that they got a kicker that can do a lot of stuff. But if you can't stop the other team, you got to score for score. And this defense is probably, I don't know. I have to go back and kind of look at who they played a little bit because I know they played one of the weaker schedules too. They played Tennessee and they played Kansas City. Both of those teams have good defenses. They don't have elite defenses. San Francisco and the Rams have elite defenses. With San Francisco having some issues in their secondary, but this should be this doesn't bode well for Cincinnati in any way, and not even line them up and look at who's bigger kind of guy way, because it's just I don't know. Plus, it's a home game now for the Rams, so I guess what they're saying is the Rams are really -1 if you're going to give them a 3-point home field advantage because they're playing at home. I don't buy that shit for a minute.
Again, 2 weeks nauseating, a bye week this week. It is what it is. It's Monday. It's the last day of the month. I hats off to the ECSI VIPs. We cashed our Sunday action parlay yesterday for about $4.20 on the dollar. I cashed 417.60 to be exact. We had the under 55 and a hook -125 in the Chiefs Bengals games. We had the Rams -177 in the second game on the money line, and we had Washington State -4 and a hook -125 against Colorado in the late game, and they were up 30 the second half. One of those box to wire love affairs that we don't get too often. So a hell of a way to close out the week as we get ready for February there. Scotty, I'm going to just quickly change gears here for a second. We have a slate tonight in the NBA, NCAA, and obviously some NHL. We have a couple NHL. Any NBA games you care to talk about, or is it just kind of nothing really stoking the fire, as you would like to say?
No, there was 5 games that I caught my eye as interest. One of them I've already eliminated. The first one and the one I eliminated was Memphis and Philadelphia today. That's going to be a pretty good game. Philadelphia has won 3 straight. Memphis has won 3 straight games again. They're back on the winning side, getting a big winning streak started. But Philadelphia has been playing awesome. They've won 4 straight. Embiid has scored, 78 million points, and he's got 30 million rebounds or something like that. So it's hard. It's hard for me to take anybody on that side. My computer says, "Hey, you need to take Memphis in this game." The money is moving, I shouldn't say the money. The number has moved. I mean, I think it was 3.5, and now it's like 2 or 2.5 or something in that game, and that means that I've lost the value in that game if you were going to take it in the first place. So that game I'm not interested in. 2 games I'm watching that I haven't played yet. 2 games I did play already, so I'll give you those in a second. But I'm watching the Clippers tonight. I want to see kind of what's going on with that number. I think it's at what, 2? Where is it?
2-0.
Yeah. So I like I like the Clippers in this game against Indiana. Indiana has not been playing well. Indiana does have a little bit of a rest advantage here in terms of how they play in those scenarios that they're under. But the computer tells me that the Clippers should win this game. The problem with Indiana is their defense has been really bad, and even though the Clippers are having a harder time to score, they're scoring recently. So the way that they're playing, like in the last 5 games, for example, the numbers come out to a pretty sizable advantage for the Clippers in the way that they're playing. It's 10 points on my computer, and then you could take them, match them up home and away. Indiana should win the game, but by 3 points. So it's a matter of recency bias and how you feel about how teams are going into this game as to whether you should take the points. So that's a game I'm watching. I haven't played it. And the other one is, and shit, this is that damn team again, is Sacramento. And Sacramento, I can't get over the idea. This New York team is not very good at home. They don't score many points. And Sacramento can score points. And they have some kids on that team, and they're just learning how to play together, and they're just learning how to play, period, for the most part. And sometimes they get blown out, but when they gel and they play pretty good, they can almost beat anybody. So the question becomes is, can they beat this team? Well, Sacramento has lost 6 straight games, and New York has lost 3 straight games. So neither one of them coming into the game playing super hot. But I've got Sacramento on the computer telling me that they should win the game by 1 point. And if we're still getting 5.5, is that what that number is? It looks like 6 and 6.5 now. So, that might be where you can look at it and go and say, hey, how are we doing here? And try to figure that one out. But the games I did play, I played Portland. Now I played them at -3.5, and I can see it's at 4 now. Or it was at 4. Small favorites over Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's lost 7 in a row. My computer tells me it's a 7-point game. But what I like about this game is Portland, since they got McCollum back, has been a different team. And OKC is still the same. I don't know. I don't want to call them shitty, but they're not very good. They're not a very good team. And if you take it all the way out, Portland's defense hasn't been that good, but the truth is Oklahoma City can't score. I mean, they average 101 points at home. That's not very good. So I like the idea that Portland can take this number and actually stretch it a little bit. And the next one is I'm going to jump on this Atlanta team. While they're a little bit hot here. Not that Toronto didn't just beat Miami, but Atlanta's won 7 in a row quietly. I don't think anybody's paying attention to that. And they are only 1-point favorites over Toronto. And my computer says, hey, this is going to be a pretty simple game for them. They're going to win by 8. So if they win by 8 and I only have to cover 1, I'm pretty good there. So I played both of those already. And now it looks like Atlanta's -2 now. So I'm okay with either one of those. If you get a number of 4, if you have to play 2, the computer says otherwise, you're good on both. So I already played Portland -3.5, but you can play them at -4. And I already played Atlanta at -1, which you could play at -2.
All right. I'll briefly go down the college, the opening numbers last night to the released public numbers today, give you some quick movements and initial thoughts. Rotation number 875, 876, 7 p.m. tip-off. Iowa at Penn State. Iowa looking to bounce back after a home loss against Purdue. Opened at 3.5, now 5. So the Sharps hit Iowa overnight there. That has moved to 1.5. I don't want to say my kryptonite because last week I went against NC Wilmington not once but twice with Northeastern and lost both times. But I just want to bring this up. This team is hot as a firecracker. Conference play, winning streak, you name it. And they're facing Drexel, 879, 880. Drexel at NC Wilmington. Drexel open -1. And get this, at Circa, NC Wilmington now -2, 1.5 across the Vegas Strip. So Sharps on NC Wilmington overnight. SIU Edwardsville against at Austin Pay. Austin Pay opens at 3. It's a flat 2 now, all across the Vegas Strip. Duke at Notre Dame. This is odd. Notre Dame has always played Duke tough. And now you're catching points with Notre Dame at home, who has played very well at home. A line that opened up at 5.5 now is a flat 5 at Circa. 5.5 across the Vegas Strip there. That will be probably the most heavily played game tonight. Colorado State at Wyoming. Colorado State on Friday, or it was Friday. 14-point favorites at home against UNLV, and I think they lost by 20. So bounce back there. Opened at 1.5-point underdogs at Wyoming. Now a pick. -1 at our friends at South Point. So Sharps coming in on Colorado State on a nice bounce back affair. Eastern Washington at Weber State, rotation number 893, 894. Weber State opened up at 9.5. It's gone to 11 at Circa, Westgate, and South Point. Fun game here. West Virginia at Baylor. Baylor licking their chops after losing at Alabama. Shout out to our boys Marty Lowe and Billy Hewlin. Bama country. Opened at 14, staying at 14. So that number hasn't moved. Tickets and money, 58% of the bets, 88% of the money, all in on West Virginia. That line has not moved. TCU at Oklahoma. TCU, a nice upset win over the weekend. Oklahoma opens up at 6, now 6.5 at Circa. So Sharps came in and hit Oklahoma at 6. Derek and company moved it to 6.5. That's about it on the big games in college hoops. In hockey, Florida at Columbus. Florida goes from 255 with a correction to -290. Anaheim at Detroit. Detroit opened up -115. Now Anaheim -112. This is their last game of a 5-game road trip. Just a heads up on that one. Sometimes they like to mail it in as they're heading back home there. Edmonton opens up -180 at Ottawa, now -195. Vancouver at Chicago. The Blackhawks open up -120, now down to -105. And last but not least, New Jersey at Toronto. Toronto opened up at -320 and currently -320. Closing thoughts, Scott.
Well, I just wanted to tell you, looking at pregame and that Duke game, what was that number? That was 883, 884. It's already got $17,000 bet, which is the most on the board for college basketball. But it's showing 64% of the money's on Notre Dame, but 74% of the tickets are on Duke.
Yeah, I think this will be a pros versus Joes. You got a under over that opened at 143, now a 144. So some quick basic math here. Let me see. 73.69 is basically what they're trying to tell you. 74.70, somewhere in that range right there. I think the public will be all in on Duke. I think the sharper guys will be in on Notre Dame. Again, Notre Dame has always played them tough. Notre Dame's had some big wins at home this year as well. Duke, one of the better teams. Again, I think we're going to really start to pick up that momentum on this is Coach K's last year, the swan song, especially come conference championships and March Madness in the brackets. It's going to be tough. When does Duke get knocked out? Does he get to the Sweet 16? Does he get to the Elite Eight? Do they make it to the Final Four? And it wouldn't shock me to see them in the Final Four, because it's his last year and it's, the story, like we got the story in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
No, I get it. I was just trying to give you a little bit of feedback from what I saw over here when you're rattling off numbers there. I was just like, well, that one you might want to split numbers, and anytime that happens, it's kind of interesting, and to know who's betting on what is important. So
absolutely.
But yeah, it's playoff football is over for now. Now we're into the championship game, and I've been doing some work on baseball, so really more of trying to fine tune some other things and look at some data points that I might use this year that I haven't used in some, because in this business, we don't use as handicappers. You shouldn't be using the traditional numbers. You don't use wins, you don't use losses for pitchers, you don't use ERA anymore. You don't use batting average anymore. You don't use any of that stuff because it's not detailed enough information for you to make bets on. So every year there are new things that come out, and the NFL and football is that same way, and basketball is the same way, and you have to keep up on what you're doing. So I was looking at some different things and some stuff, but it won't be too much longer, and I feel reasonably comfortable now that I think that something's going to give in this negotiation, and they're going to have a games. So I'm going to start writing the preview book.
It's music to our ears. I was asked that question yesterday, and there's no doubt in my mind that I think they're going to resolve this. Now, with that said, again, they're not going to listen. 2 years ago, they're coming off a 60-game season. We know that it's a sport on life support. They need to get this thing rolling, and it just, unfortunately, it comes down to greed. And for the average person that's got to get up and do a 9 to 5, it's got to work 2 jobs to put food on the plate, the kids through school, to keep the heat on, the cable on, and these guys are multi millionaires and owners of billionaires, and then they're whining, and it's just such a bad look. It's a black eye in the sport. I can't stand seeing adults crying over whose yacht's bigger, and let me, it's a sad state of affairs. You need to just get this done. You need to promote the sport. The sport's never been bigger and brighter with the young kids and the talent. Let's promote it. Let's get it going versus just blowing it up.
Well, I will say this about Major League Baseball is one of the key things that's a change over the past several years, and it's only been a positive change in the last couple of years. Every single year at a certain age, people start to regress and they start to get worse. And that's still the case in Major League Baseball. However, there are now specialized places that people go, and people learn different things. Starting pitchers, and even relief pitchers for that matter, they get better now. So don't just assume, and this is just one thing I got to make sure that everybody kind of understands, that if they go to, say, Driveline, and they work on things, and those guys at Driveline show them things versus in video, and the Rapsodo machines and all the other stuff that they have to get better. The guys are great, talented athletes, and those guys can utilize the information provided to them and get better, and they make those adjustments and they are better. So keep a list, and this is one of the things you want to try to find out about when you can, because they bring it up in the spring training games. you need to find out who went to those events and who went to those things, because expect those guys to perform better than they did the year before. And that's an edge, because when the sports books bring out the numbers, they're going to go based off of what the numbers produced a year ago and what they sort of foresee them to be as this year's team. And you can find value in those guys that have gone on to learn other things. So that's an important thing to try to keep track of.
This week, busy week. Keep your fingers crossed. We might have a special guest from VEASAN on tomorrow on the Midday Market Report. Wednesday, our guest for the Midday Market Report. Actually, I should almost call him. He's a weekly feature. Andrew McGinnis at Wager Talk. Thursday and Friday, the Midday Market Report will feature the Windy City Review. I like to say it. Colton on Thursday, Riley on Friday. I think the following week we will have a special guest, Mr. Dave Sharapan from Radio Row. He will be at the Super Bowl with, I think, his co-host Matt Peralt there. Obviously, Scott will be with us again tomorrow morning for the Breakfast Bankroll, and then he will be back on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week for the Bankroll. But all week this week, he will be making his 4:30 appearance for the closing bell. And I just need to say this, the Breakfast Bankroll tomorrow morning will not be at 10. If we will be airing, it will have to be at 9. I got to talk to Scotty behind the scenes for that. Have a little dentist, my pet peeve, appointment, which in the back of my mind, Scotty, I'm already thinking 100 different ways to get out of it right now. I don't do well at the dentist, but that's for another day. But special thanks to our loyal supporters, Mr. Lucky, Billy Hewlin, Marty Lowe. The list is endless and growing on a day-to-day basis. We couldn't do it without you guys. So everyone wagering tonight, please wager and invest responsibly. If you have a problem, pick up that phone. There's an 800 number right there. Ask for help. Why? Because we care. We want you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, throughout 2022 and beyond. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, and my co-host, Mr. Scotty Webb at Webby20 MLB, we wish you a blessed day, and we'll catch you at the closing bell right around 4:30 Eastern.